It's NCK Studio Sessions on NCK 94.9. I'm Toby Nosker. Tonight, playing for us live in studio from Ashland, Kansas, this is Red Dirt country music singer-songwriter Joey Dean.
It's cold out, you're not near. Texting ringtone is all that I hear. You're not close enough to me like this. You say it'll be fine, it'll work out in due time. What's something about you that I miss? Well, I miss summertime, sitting on the porch and talking with you, drinking cold beer just like we knew, dancing in the yard after having a few. I miss chatting in a crowd like nobody's there, laughing out loud when somebody stares. This whole world, there's nothing more true than summertime and talking with you. Well, I'm thinking winter's too long. I need the sun and a Buffett song. Sometimes the lives we lead just ain't fair. I wish you were here at my house so I could get up off this couch. Meet me on the front step, I'm already there. It's summertime, sitting on the porch and talking with you, drinking cold beer just like we knew, dancing in the yard after having a few. Chatting in a crowd like nobody's there, laughing out loud when somebody stares. In this old world, there's nothing more true than summertime and talking with you. Do you love me? And do you miss me? Those were the best times back in summertime, sitting on the porch and talking with you, drinking cold beer just like we knew, dancing in the yard after having a few. I miss chatting in the crowd like nobody's there, laughing out loud when somebody stares. In this old world, there's nothing more true than summertime talking with you.
With Summertime, playing for us live in studio from Ashland, Kansas. That is Red Dirt country music singer-songwriter Joey Dean, our guest on tonight's NCK Studio Sessions on NCK 94.9. And this is a special show for me, an opportunity to catch up with an old friend. Joey, how are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
I'm great. And God, it's been so long since I've seen you.
Yeah, I was trying to do the math earlier. I think it's been like a dozen years since we actually were on the radio together. I don't even know if I've seen you since then. So
yeah, my start in radio actually came an opportunity to work with Joey Dean. My first job in radio was at KQNS in Salina. I worked for your dad, Butch LaBelle. And it led me on a path to where I am today. But I want to talk a little bit about how you got where you are today and talk about music. But first, I want to begin like I do with all of my guests. Where'd you grow up?
Well, it's kind of a hard question to answer. I moved around a lot when I was younger. I was born in Wichita, and I finally found a home in Ashland, Kansas. That's where I currently live. That's where I graduated high school. It's where my mom's lived since I was 7 years old, so 21 years now. And I call that my hometown, but I lived everywhere. I lived in Lyons, Salina, parts of Oklahoma, just kind of everywhere. I lived in Virginia for 3 years, so I've been everywhere, and that's, I think, what makes me the musician that I am, is just all the different influences of the different places, but Ashland's definitely my hometown.
When I knew you before, you were just a young kid in radio. How did the music thing come about?
I actually been playing music, writing songs since I was probably about 10. And then I started taking piano lessons about 12 for about 6 months. And then when I was 14, me and some buddies started a band, and I was the lead singer. and our bass guitarist quit, so I picked up the bass guitar and taught myself how to play bass, and then transitioned over to teaching myself guitar, and I just played in bands ever since. And just in the last 5 years, I've gone to the country, which is what I grew up listening to, and first couple of songs I wrote were country, and so going back to my roots is how that all came about.
And I find that interesting because I know back in the day, you were more into the rock music side of things.
Yeah, I was a punk rocker. I had my skater shoes and my hat all crooked, and yeah, I was a cool kid.
And now you find yourself doing the red dirt country thing.
Yeah, I love the red dirt part of it because it's got that little bit of rock to it. It's got that little flair, if you will, and with the old country roots. And, you know, the pop country stuff that's on the radio now, I can't stand, and it drives me crazy. And so it's nice to have something, the Texas country, the red dirt country, that is pulling from the roots, but just adding a little bit of southern rock and roll to it, too.
Joey Dean joining us tonight on NCK Studio Sessions here on NCK 94.9. I'm Toby Nosker, and coming up, I want to talk a little bit about the development of you as an artist and why you do so lean towards getting back, as you said, to your roots and the red dirt country side of things. But did you grow up around people that were musically inclined, or what was it that made you gravitate to music at such a young age?
Well, my dad was a singer. He sang in church and things like that, and I don't know, music's always just stuck with me, and it's one of those things. My parents, when they split up, I was the only one who lived with my dad, and so there was a lot of nights that I'd hang out at the radio station there in Salina listening to CDs from bands that nobody had heard of because I was bored, and I, have developed that kind of need for music, I guess. And when I started writing and started learning how to do that, all that came to it where I had to write, I had to play, and it's definitely an addiction, but it started out just by being around music as much as I was in radio and all that.
So what do you feel like you get out of it? What does music give you?
Pure joy, I guess. Playing music, as a musician, you're bearing your heart and your soul, and it takes a lot out of you to do that, but it's really fulfilling when somebody walks up and says, hey, I love this song, or, oh, you did this great, and it's really a great feeling that you get from it.
Throughout those teenage years, when you were first starting to experiment with music, then were you actually out performing at that time?
Performing to spiders on the garage wall and things like that. I played a few shows when I was in high school, but it was mostly just playing in garage bands with my friends, and it wasn't until I moved out, went to college, and ended up moving to Manhattan that I started actually playing a lot of shows.
So even when you weren't performing, were you always writing?
Yeah, I've been writing 18 years now and can't stop.
Coming up, I want to spend some time talking a little bit about the songwriting process for you. But before we do that, let's jump back into some more music. Again, from Ashland, Kansas. Joining us in studio tonight on NCK Studio Sessions on NCK 94.9 is Red Dirt country music singer-songwriter Joey Dean. Here he is with his song, Hand Me Down Cowboy.
I'm a hand-me-down cowboy, I'm no shining star. Buckle has tarnished, my leather has scars. Saddle is beat up, these chaps are well worn, but you can't carry history if it's bought in a store. My hat was my papa's, he wore to death, complete with this feather tucked in on the left. He always told me, hey boy, do your best, keep giving your all until your last breath. I'm a hand-me-down cowboy, I'm no shining star. Buckle has tarnished, my leather has scars. Saddle is beat up, these chaps are well worn, but you can't carry history if it's bought in a store. These boots have been resold dozens of times. They were my uncle's till the day that he died. Willed them to me and I wear them with pride. He was a war hero who taught me to fight. I'm a hand-me-down cowboy, I'm no shining star. Buckle has tarnished, my leather has scars. Saddle is beat up, these chaps are well worn, but you can't carry history if it's bought in a store. old man's he wore them for years. I stand by his headstone filling with tears. Look back at my life and how I got here. I'd never have made it without all them near. I'm a hand-me-down cowboy, I'm no shining star. Buckle has tarnished, my leather has scars. Saddle is beat up, these chaps are well worn. But you can't carry history if it's bought in a store. No, you can't carry history if it's bought in a store.
Hand Me Down Cowboy from Joey Dean, our guest tonight on NCK Studio Sessions on NCK 94.9. It's NCK Studio Sessions on NCK 94.9. I'm Toby Nosker. Tonight, joining us in studio from Ashland, Kansas, Red Dirt country music singer-songwriter Joey Dean. And let's jump in and talk a little bit about the songwriting process for you and kind of take me through the journey, what the experience is like for you when you sit down to write a song.
There's basically three different ways that I write. There's with the guitar, I'll make a medley or something and write something to it. And then the getting hit by one line, driving down the interstate and just a line pops into your head, or you're in conversation with somebody and somebody says something. Then you build off that. And then just basically the stories, hearing a story from somebody like an old-timer farmer or family member, or just experiencing something and wanting to express that moment. And, like a song is just capturing a moment and trying to make it last forever. And that's probably my favorite way to write. But more often than not, it's one line will hit me when I'm fishing or something, and I'll just start humming it and then build around that, and then just spirals out of control from there.
Is the story aspect of songwriting, is that important to you? And do you feel like your music in particular is very lyric driven?
Yeah, it definitely. That's the one thing that I can proudly say. I'm a really good songwriter. I'm not much of a singer. I'm not much of a guitarist, but I'm really, really good at putting words on paper. And so that's what I'm most proud of. And that's, the comments I get back from other people are about the lyrics. And, they call me an old soul sometimes because my lyrics are beyond what I should be at 28 years old. But I've seen and experienced a lot of things that kind of made me grow up. So,
is it a challenge, or do you find that the lyrics themselves, they flow out of you pretty easy?
It depends. There's some subjects that I won't touch because I know they'd be difficult, and then there's others that I'll touch on repeatedly because they're easy and I can pop out a song. But it just kind of depends on the situation, what I'm going through, whether I'm in a bad mood or a good mood. I'm a very emotional person, and so it just kind of depends on how I'm feeling at the moment, on whether it's a difficult thing to write or whether it's not.
And I've had a lot of guests tell me that the darker mood they're in, the more easier it is to write.
Yeah, actually it is. When you hate the world, you can put words to paper.
Joey Dean joining us tonight on NCK Studio Sessions on NCK 94.9. You said there's some parts about you that you won't touch, that you won't put into your songs. I often ask my guests, how much of themselves personally do they put into their music? For you, how much do you actually aim to do that? And do you find that a song becomes more meaningful because you've added that personal touch to it?
With every song I write, I never want to write something about something I've never done or never experienced. I don't want to be that guy. There's people that'll sing about places in Texas that they have never been to, and I mentioned that in one of my songs, a place in Texas that I strive to get to someday. But I need to, when I write a song, I'll look at it and be like, would I really do that? Or, have I done that? Or something like that. And more often than not, I usually write stuff that's about things I've experienced or somebody close to me has experienced. And so I try to incorporate that in as much as anything, because then when I perform it, it's more real and I can play it from my heart instead of just slinging words out there.
What's been the experience for you playing your own original material as opposed to doing cover songs? How do you feel about kind of opening yourself up to an audience?
It's awesome. I I try to gain one fan out of every show I play. I just want one. I'm not greedy. And I try to do that through the originals. I play a lot of covers too, but I'll sprinkle the originals in there. And, I just try to reach out to one fan per show and try to connect with them on some level with one song. And usually those people come up to you afterwards and ask for your website or if they can get a copy of the song that they liked. And it depends on who it is, on what song. And it's really a cool thing. Not long ago, I had put a song called Cowboy, I'll Play Later For You. I had put it away. I wrote it out in Virginia, and I played it out there, and it didn't go over very well. And so I just kind of shoved it into the box and put it on the shelf. And I was hanging out with a couple of friends. One of them's a rodeo clown, and or bullfighter, as he calls himself. And my other buddy was sitting there, and we're all talking about my music, and we go through the list of originals that my wife had written down, and we came across Cowboy, and neither one of them had ever heard it. And I was like, oh, it's not that great of a song. Here it is. And I played it for them, and they were just all over it and had me play it again and recorded it on their phones and were sharing it with their friends. And, when things like that happen, like a song that you put away and you don't really feel like it's something that people are going to get, and then you play it, and it's overwhelming when they like it.
Well, let's give the song a listen. Again, playing for us live in studio today from Ashland, Kansas. He is a Red Dirt country music singer-songwriter, performing the song Cowboy. This is Joey Dean.
Wearing broke down boots and holes in my jeans. Living on the road since I was 17. Make my money one ride at a time. Love my women from night to night. On my radio, I like my music way up. Before I get to town, you hear my pickup truck. But I'm a cowboy, and I was raised in Southern style, Amazing Grace, Dixie flags, and pearl snaps, cheap whiskey and cowboy hats, bulls and broncs and Southern bells. Go to church, stay out of hell. Some folks ain't made for living this way, but I'm a cowboy, born and raised. Daddy plowed fields till he was dead. His riding days ended when he and Mama wed. Always wanted me to have a better life, and the one that we had in that double wide. I wonder what he'd say now if he could see me riding in Vegas on that cable TV. Well, I'm a cowboy, and I was raised in Southern style, Amazing Grace, Dixie flags, and pearl snaps, cheap whiskey and cowboy hats, bulls and broncs and Southern bells. Go to church, stay out of hell. Some folks ain't made for living this way, but I'm a cowboy, born and raised. Well, I'm a cowboy, ain't scared of none. And guns. I'm a cowboy. I'm a cowboy, and I was raised in Southern style, Amazing Grace, Dixie flags, and pearl snaps, cheap whiskey and cowboy hats, bulls and broncs and Southern bells. Go to church, stay out of hell. Some folks ain't made for living this way. I said some folks ain't made for living this way, but I'm a cowboy, born and raised.
Cowboy from Joey Dean, our guest tonight on NCK Studio Sessions on NCK 94.9. Welcome back to more NCK Studio Sessions on NCK 94.9. I'm Toby Nosker, sitting in studio with us from Ashland, Kansas, Red Dirt country music singer-songwriter Joey Dean. Here he is with Shootin' Memories.
Well, the phone call said it all improved the suspicion. Got her fired up, sent her on a mission. All his lying and cheating and come to a head. Not the type of girl that shares her bed, and it made her sick, all the things he said. She'll never let him hurt her anymore. Now she's heading down to the river with a 45 Colt and a box of his pictures. Gonna tack them all up on the tree. Said he better never lie or cheat, but he broke every promise he swore he'd keep. So she spent the day shooting down his memory. Taught her how to shoot and bought her the gun, and showed her how to stand with her back to the sun. Then he snuck around just like a snake. Now she's picking off his pictures one at a time. With every round she starts feeling more fine. She never let him hurt her anymore. So she's heading down to the river with a 45 Colt and a box of his pictures. Gonna tack them all up on the tree. Said he better never lie or cheat, but he broke every promise he swore he'd keep. So she spent the day shooting down his memory. Holster. She'll never let him hurt her anymore.
Shootin' Memories from Joey Dean, our guest tonight on NCK Studio Sessions on NCK 94.9. I'm Toby Nosker, and one of the reasons I've done this show, and what I like to imagine is, say there's a young kid, sort of where you were at one point, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, sitting in their room, they've been writing, they've been playing the guitar, and thinking about someday putting themselves out there. And I like to use this moment with the guests that I have as an opportunity to give a little bit of advice. And for you, I know when you do a show, it's a mixture of your own original stuff as well as cover songs. And you like to sprinkle in some of those originals when you're doing those covers. So explain to me a little bit about how you go about deciding what you're going to do. Do you have a set list, or is it really just about feeling out the room, kind of gauging what the audience is in the mood for, what they like to hear, and then going from there?
Well, I had the benefit of being in radio, as you know, and you have to build a list every hour on what you're going to play, and it's got to have peaks and valleys. And I learned, in fact, the movie High Fidelity, the John Cusack movie, is my favorite movie of all time, and he talks about building a mixtape and the highs and lows to it, and you can't be too loud too early, but you can't be too soft too soon, and it's really a complex process. And I always try to make a set list, but I'll take requests, and I'll skip a song if I don't feel like that's the right song for the moment. If the crowd's dancing on the floor and I got a really, really slow, sad song next, I'm going to play more upbeat song, try to keep them out on the dance floor. And it kind of depends on the situation. There's some shows that I play that I stick strictly to the set list, and I'm up there for a certain amount of time, and I play a handful of covers, an original, handful of covers, original, and then get off stage. And then there's certain other ones where I have a little more leeway to have fun, interact with the crowd. And that's what I try to do more often than not, is try to interact with people and make them feel like they're a part of the show too.
I'm sure you end up playing a variety of venues, whether it's the small town coffee shop to the local dive bar and everything in between. Is there a type of venue or a type of audience that you most appreciate?
I've always said this, and I said it again. I played with a band. We played Riverfest this year, and there was thousands of people out there, and it was fun, and everybody enjoyed it. And in fact, one of the clips we're going to play is a live version of a song "Honky Tonks in Texas," and it was recorded there at Riverfest, and it was fun and all. But honestly, I'd rather play for 5 people who get what I'm doing than 5,000 people, and maybe 5 of them in that whole crowd actually are connecting with the music. I love playing for small groups. House parties are more my scene, and sitting in the corner and a handful of people just gathered around. I love that. But if I had to pick just a place, it'd probably be the smaller bars, in the small towns that people are just there to dance and have a good time.
Joey Dean joining us here on NCK Studio Sessions on NCK 94.9. We're going to play that live recording from you at Wichita Riverfest. Tell me a little bit about that opportunity, though.
It was awesome. I was playing with a band out of Wichita, and we picked up a couple of my originals. It was mostly covers that we did, but picked up a couple of originals, and the one you're going to hear here is called Honky Tonks in Texas, and I was a little nervous to play this at Riverfest because it's not Texas, and it was a huge crowd and mixed people, but by the end of the song, everybody was dancing around and just absolutely loved it, and there's actually a video on YouTube of it, and it was a lot of fun to play at Riverfest. It was one of the bigger shows that I've ever gotten to play, and I've always dreamed of playing in Wichita at Riverfest, and so to have that dream come true was really special.
Well, let's hear it with the live version of Honky Tonks in Texas. It's Joey Dean.
Well, the heck with Nashville, I'm going down to Texas. I hear that's where the dance to my style of music. Yeah, the heck with Nashville, I'm going down to Texas. And them honky tonks, that's where I'm gonna be. Well, when I got to old Tennessee, that record man wanted to look at me and said, son, you got potential, but you gotta please the crowd. I took the stage in a fancy bomb, but the music came from my guitar was a little bit too twangly. We were playing it too loud. All the heck with Nashville, I'm going down to Texas. I hear that's where the dance to my style of music. Yeah, the heck with Nashville, I'm going down to Texas. And them honky tonks, that's where I'm gonna be, baby. When I got off stage, the man shook his head and said, you know that haggard style's dead. Can you play a little more modern? You do like Rascal Flatts. I tip my hats and no thank you, sir. Pop music makes my ears burn, and any guy that sounds like that, Justin Bieber is just that. On the heck with Nashville, I'm going down to Texas. I hear that's where the dance to my style of music. Yeah, the heck with Nashville, I'm going down to Texas. In the honky tonks, that's where I'm gonna be. Big toe, my baby. Back here on the keys, Mr. Ronnie Dewey. thing better than Wichita, Kansas on a Tuesday night. Country music and troops all the heck with Nashville. I'm going down to Texas. I hear that's world dance style of music. Yeah, the heck with Nashville. I'm going to Wichita, Kansas. At the River Fest, that's where I'm gonna be, baby. No, I may never be rich, may never be what you call famous, but I'll be happy in them honky tonks with my friends. Yeah, let's go down to them honky tonks. Honky tonks in Texas.
Live from the Wichita Riverfest this year, that was Joey Dean, our guest on tonight's NCK Studio Sessions on NCK 94.9. It's NCK Studio Sessions on NCK 94.9. I'm Toby Nosker. It's time for our final segment tonight with Red Dirt country music singer-songwriter Joey Dean of Ashland, Kansas. And Joey, at the beginning of the show, we talked a little bit about your musical taste, and very eclectic. And you started out actually playing in a punk rock band, and now here you are, as you say, going back to your roots, the Red Dirt country side of things. Tell me a little bit about your musical influences and the decision then to migrate back to Red Dirt country.
You know, when I started out doing music, I grew up listening to Diamond Rio and Garth Brooks and George Strait, and when I started playing with my friends, it was Blink-182 and Flogging Molly and all those punk bands. And then I ended up in a metal band for a while, listening to Disturbed and Seasons After and bands like that. And now, currently, I think my favorite ones are probably Kevin Fowler and Jason Boland, Cross Canadian Ragweed, your iconic Red Dirt artists. But I really like some other guys. Kyle Park is a guy starting to get a name. Bo Phillips, Stoney LaRue. Curtis Grimes. Just my playlist on the way up here was all of those guys, plus some Willie Nelson and Merle Haggard, and it's just, if I like it, I'll listen to it. It doesn't really matter to me who it is. You know, they're secretly, I'll tell you, I even like a couple of Rascal Flatts songs, but it just kind of depends on the song. Yeah, I don't really try to zero in on one artist. I just kind of zero in on whether I like it or not, and it runs from punk to hard rock to country.
And it's often identified as kind of the Texas Red Dirt as opposed to the mainstream Nashville sound that maybe most people are more familiar with.
It's just the mixture of the old school country and the little bit of rock and the newer style of playing. You know, you got your songs like Storytellers. Like, I always say that Jason Boland is the new Johnny Cash because he's just amazing storyteller, just like Johnny Cash was, and his music kind of follows along those same lines. And you have guys like that, but you also have guys like a Kevin Fowler, for instance, who's more the flashy and very upbeat kind of artist. You know, like Jason Boland is the soulful one, and I kind of compare him. Jason Boland's more the George Strait type, and Kevin Fowler's more the Garth Brooks type, if you can understand what that difference is. The live show with Garth Brooks is all fire and flames and all sorts of things like that, whereas George Strait's just playing the music and singing the songs. And I think I like that there's such a wide variety of that in that area, and they all stick with each other, and they'll stand behind each other, and you know, you can't talk trash on one Texas artist without having 5 Texas artists come after you. So,
you mentioned earlier in the interview that when you went off to college, that's when you really got a lot more serious about this music thing. Why so?
I just got in the right place at the right time, I think. I played in a band called Average American. It was a punk band. My little brother was the drummer, and a friend of mine was our bass player, and we ended up, I went off to college and I dropped out and moved back to Oklahoma, and was living with my stepbrother, and we had this little band, 3-man band, and we went and played a Battle of the Bands in Salina at the city and played a couple of other shows. And people were I started really learning how to use the internet at that point. And that's the funny thing. Like, now kids grew up on the internet. I don't even remember getting on the internet till I was a sophomore in high school. So, but I started using the internet a little more, and MySpace was big at the time, and gaining fans for the band through that. And we had opportunities to go record places before we broke up. But just that little taste of people wanting more and wanting, can I get this track, and I'll even pay you for it, and that never crossed my mind. And so I went from that, and I moved to Manhattan, and was living with a couple of Ashland friends up there, and started another band, and we just kept playing and playing and playing, and eventually I was playing shows up there in the metal band that I was in. And then when I left, I ended up moving back to Ashland. That's when I kind of turned the corner, and I had long hair back then too. It was a lot longer, but I had my nails painted black and wore black shirts and was very, I don't know what I was, but I partied way too hard. And when I went back home, that was one of the things that I worked on, is, calming down. And then I kind of changed the way I did things and went back. I forgot how good cowboy boots felt to have on your feet, and, nice pair of Wranglers felt. And I started wearing pearl snaps again, just like I did when I was a kid, and just kind of built from there. And then music came after that. And, falling back in love with country music was probably one of the better things I ever did in my life.
I know early on in your career you're performing with bands. What's it like now that you're out doing the solo acoustic thing?
Well, I just kind of got tired of the whole band thing. I always say problem with the band is they're full of musicians, and it's just all the egos, and you have to play to everybody's ego, and if somebody gets their feelings hurt, then there's a divide in the group, and it just drove me crazy. And so when I started playing country, I was like, this is something that I can do on my own. I don't have to have a band. I just got to be a better guitarist, and so I've worked on that a lot. But and the storytelling part helps a lot with going out on your own too. But it was terrifying when I first struck out on my own. I remember one of the first solo shows I played was in Wichita at a place called Mug and Jug, and there were so many people packed in this place. It was a birthday party, and I had never really done a full show by myself before, and it was nerve-wracking, and I didn't even know if I could do it, and I was terrified. And I called my mom beforehand, and she kind of calm me down, and she said, the minute the lights turn on, that microphone turns on, Joey Dean will show up. And she was right. And ever since then, I try to make it a habit to call my mom before a show, because it's still, even to this day, a nerve-wracking thing to go up there and be by yourself and not really have anybody to hide behind. And but it's something that's made me a better musician also, and when I get the opportunity to play with other bands, having that confidence in yourself really goes a long way.
Joey Dean from Ashland, Kansas, joining us tonight on NCK Studio Sessions here on NCK 94.9. I'm Toby Nosker. He's going to perform for us one more time in studio. Before we get to that, though, you, like a lot of my guests, have a day job, and it's not music. This is something you end up doing on the side. Is it becoming a little more routine, though? And have you gotten your name out enough to where you're able to book gigs on a regular basis and find yourself performing at the different kinds of venues, towns, areas you want to be at?
It's hit and miss. I mean, you'll have 6 months where you have shows and you're actually having to turn people down because double booking and things like that. And then you'll have 3 or 4 months where it's a nice little break. And it's good that it works that way, because if you just keep going and going and going, working full time, and I actually also own a business, part-time business doing rock art. And so, doing those two things plus keeping my wife happy and then going on the road and playing, it's a tiring thing. And so it's really good to have the 6 months on, because you're all geared up and, you don't really sleep a lot and you just love it. And then it's good to have that 3 or 4 month break where you can breathe a little bit and go fishing a little bit more and things like that. So it depends. I think I'm gaining enough popularity to where I can call up a place and book a gig, but it's, one of those things you just got to kind of have faith in the music and let it lead you.
You mentioned your wife. You talked about other members of your family as well. How important is a support system? I'm sure it's a lot of long nights, a lot of weekends, a lot of window time on the road. It's very easy to get down. How important is having a support system like that to keeping you motivated and keeping you going?
Oh, it's probably one of the biggest things that I need, and if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be doing this. Like I said, I'm a really emotional person, and I'll take my emotions to the extremes and just kind of get down and sad, and if I perform badly or can't finish writing a song, and I'll get frustrated. And so I have a group of friends that I'll call, even if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, they'll still answer my call and kind of talk me through it and help me get back onto the confident path, I guess. But it's one of those things that you have to trust the people around you, and they have to trust you. And so when you're gone, just little things like watering your dogs and things like that are a huge thing for you.
Well, it's been good to have you in studio with us tonight, sharing your music with us. Have you been able to get some traction? Are there some radio stations jumping on board with your music? Have you found avenues in order to be able to get yourself out there and get your music promoted?
A couple of stations have picked up some of my stuff. They're all still kind of waiting for me to finish my album so that they have something to really push. So I need to get on that and finish that. But I use social media a lot, and it's probably my biggest asset. Came up with my own hashtag by accident one night that a couple of friends picked up on and kept promoting it to the point that I ended up starting using it all the time. And social media is a huge thing nowadays, and the internet in general. And so many people can listen to anybody. I know there's people that I know in Vermont that listen to my music and get excited when I post a new song or a new video online. And if you look at my Reverb Nation fans, they're all across, not even just in the U.S. I got some fans in Australia even. And so it's a really cool thing to be able to share with a wide audience, because you never know. I mean, there could be somebody who loves your music in the middle of a metal scene, and in a big city like Detroit or something, that they never really had that opportunity to connect with that before, and now the internet's given that opportunity to connect with a wider audience.
Do you want to stick with the solo thing, or are you looking at putting a band together?
Eventually, I'll put something together. Right now, I'm happy doing the acoustic solo stuff, and in 6 months that might change. But right now, I'm just happy working on the music and being happy playing it myself, and then I'll add other people in to play it with me.
Well, unfortunately, we're nearing the end of the show this week, but again, I do appreciate you sitting in studio with us. And before we go, I want to give you an opportunity to play for us once more live in studio. Tell us a little bit about the song that we're going to hear.
This song is called Lakeshore. It's actually what I say is my first country song I wrote when I came back to country. And it's based on a true story. I was living in Wichita, and I was hanging out with this guy, a coworker of mine, and his fiance broke up with him over Facebook. And he happened to be at a house party that I was at one night, and this all happens, and I find him in the fetal position clutching his phone on the front porch, and I was like, man, there is 20 bottles in there, and the answer's at the bottom of one of them. Let's get started, and then tomorrow I'm taking to the lake, and we're going to forget all about all this. And so we did. We went to the lake. We ended up meeting some people, had a great time, and by the end of it, he was back to his good old self and didn't care anymore. And so I decided to write a song about it, and this is called Lakeshore.
Well, let's give it a listen. Closing out this week's edition of NCK Studio Sessions here on NCK 94.9, performing live in studio. This is Joey Dean with Lakeshore.
Well, I'm sure you're probably busy hanging with your friends, going out all night and every weekend. Well, me, I'm doing okay. I'm sitting here right now. You're just a faded memory that I can't live without. I'm on a lakeshore sipping on ice cold beer with the boys, that's right. We got some new friends with us that we just met at the bar last night. And you bet they're pretty, and I know they're ready. On a lakeshore sipping on ice cold beer, yeah, I'm doing alright. Well, I'm sure you you're probably thinking I'm miserable at best, but this cowgirl's boot is shaking to Skinner and the rest. And I'm sure that eventually I'll think of you and smile, 'cause if you hadn't wrecked me, hey, I wouldn't be here right now on the lakeshore sipping on ice cold beer with the boys. That's right. We got some new friends with us that we just met at the bar last night, and you bet they're pretty, and I know they're ready on a lakeshore sipping on ice cold beer. Yeah, I'm doing alright, and I know that someday we'll go home. But till then, we're on a lakeshore sipping on ice cold beer with the boys. That's right. We got some new friends with us that we just met at the bar last night, and you bet they're pretty, and I know they're ready on a lakeshore sipping on ice cold beer. Yeah, I'm doing alright. I'm on a lakeshore sipping on ice cold beer, and you know I'm doing alright. On a lakeshore sipping on ice cold beer, you can bet I'm doing alright. I'm on a lakeshore sipping on ice cold beer, and yeah, I'm doing